6:47 a.m., June 27, 2025. FBI Special Agent Maria Rodriguez checks her watch. Happy Valley, Oregon. A quiet suburb outside Portland. The target's house sits at the end of a cul-de-sac, white trim, two-car garage, American flags on neighboring porches. Nothing unusual, nothing that screams foreign spy. But inside that house lives Yuance Chen, 38 years old, Chinese national, legal permanent resident. And for the past 4 years, he's been working for Beijing's Ministry of State Security. Rodriguez watches the front door through her binoculars. The lights come on inside. Chen moves through the kitchen. He doesn't see the 17 FBI vehicles positioned on surrounding streets. Doesn't know that 300 miles south in Houston, Texas, another team is moving into position. Doesn't know his handler, Liren is about to be arrested in a coordinated takedown. Rodriguez speaks into her radio. All units stand by. The arrest warrants are signed. The evidence fills 3 bankers' boxes. The operation has been running for 4 years. This morning it ends. Inside the Navy Recruitment Center in San Gabriel, California, the computers still hold the information Chen stole. Personal details on young Americans trying to serve their country. Names, ages, addresses, email contacts, Social Security numbers, educational backgrounds, family information. Everything a foreign intelligence service would need to build targeting profiles. Chen had walked into that recruitment center like any other visitor, asked questions, seemed interested. The recruiter never suspected. Why would they? Chen looked like a potential recruit, asked smart questions, took brochures. But while the recruiter stepped away for a moment, Chen's phone came out. Photographs of computer screens, quick snapshots of recruiting materials left on desks, personal information forms waiting to be filed. It took less than 90 seconds. By the time the recruiter returned, Chen was just another visitor asking about service opportunities. The recruiter smiled, answered questions, handed over business cards. Never knew the Chinese Ministry of State Security had just walked through the door. The small detail that would help crack this case open wasn't dramatic. No secret microfilm, no elaborate brush pass, just a routine financial transaction that triggered an algorithm. Chen's wife, living in Portland, Oregon, deposited exactly $10,000 in cash into their bank account in January 2022. The amount was perfectly legal, just under the $11,000 threshold that requires mandatory reporting. But patterns matter. The FBI's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network monitors these transactions, not individually, but when combined with other indicators. A Chinese national, with no obvious source for large cash deposits, making multiple transactions just under reporting thresholds. The algorithm flagged it. A human analyst reviewed it. The analyst saw something concerning. She pulled Chen's immigration records, his travel history, his employment background. She opened a preliminary inquiry. What that analyst discovered would expose a Ministry of State Security intelligence network operating on American soil. What she found would reveal an operation targeting the United States Navy. What she uncovered would lead FBI counterintelligence agents to 2 men who had betrayed their adopted country for cash and loyalty to Beijing. But that morning in January 2022, she only had a suspicious cash deposit, a single thread. She began pulling. The entire operation started to unravel. Yuance Chen arrived in the United States as a student. Born in 1987 in China's Fujian province, he came to America pursuing educational opportunities that would change his life trajectory. He enrolled at a university and worked toward establishing himself in a country that offered freedoms and possibilities unavailable in his homeland. He became a legal permanent resident, married an American woman, built a life in Portland, Oregon. On paper, Chen represented an immigrant success story, someone who came to America seeking opportunity and built a middle-class existence. He worked various jobs, paid his taxes, maintained a low profile. His neighbors knew him as quiet, polite, reserved. He attended community events occasionally, kept his yard maintained, drove a modest vehicle. Nothing about his lifestyle suggested wealth or unusual activity, but Chen had maintained connections to China that went deeper than family ties. At some point between 2018 and 2021, those connections took a darker turn. Someone from China's Ministry of State Security made contact. The approach was likely careful, gradual. perhaps framed initially as helping his homeland, perhaps offered as a business opportunity, perhaps presented as a patriotic duty. However it began, Chen agreed. He would work for Chinese intelligence. He would gather information on American military personnel. He would operate as an agent of a foreign power on American soil. And he would recruit others to help. Liren Lai lived in Houston, Texas, 39 years old, also a Chinese national and legal permanent resident. His background followed a similar pattern to Chen's. Came to America seeking opportunity, established residency, built what appeared to be a normal life. The two men likely met through Chinese community connections, shared language, shared culture, shared understanding of navigating life as immigrants in America. But they also shared something else. Both had agreed to work for the Ministry of State Security. Both had been recruited into an intelligence network operating in the United States. Both would follow instructions from handlers based in China. Both would collect information on American military installations and personnel. Both would travel to China for meetings with intelligence officers. Both would receive payment for their espionage activities. The FBI would later piece together how the network operated. The Tradecraft wasn't sophisticated by traditional espionage standards. No dead drops in hollowed-out tree trunks, no shortwave radio messages, no elaborate disguises. Instead, the Ministry of State Security used methods adapted for the digital age mixed with old-school cash exchanges. The operation blended modern technology with classic intelligence techniques, and for 4 years, it worked. The operation's first documented activity occurred in January 2022. Chen traveled to Livermore, California, a city east of San Francisco Bay, population approximately 95,000, home to Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, a place where defense research happens, where classified work occurs, where security matters. Chen didn't go near the laboratory. He went to a recreational facility, a bowling alley and entertainment center. The kind of place where families bring kids for birthday parties, where bowling leagues meet on weeknights, where everything seems normal and American and innocent. Chen arrived on a specific date, walked inside, headed to the locker room area, found a specific locker, number 47. The locker wasn't locked. Inside sat a backpack, black, unremarkable, the kind students carry every day. Chen opened the backpack. Inside was cash, $10,000 in used bills. Mixed denominations, untraceable. Chen took the money, left the backpack, walked out. The entire exchange took less than 5 minutes, a dead drop executed in the middle of an American bowling alley. Classic Cold War tradecraft happening in 2022. The money came from the Ministry of State Security, delivered through a cutout, someone whose identity Chen probably didn't know, someone who left the backpack and walked away. The system worked. Chen had been paid. The operation was active. Beijing's intelligence service had assets operating in America. After receiving payment, Chen received new tasking. Instructions came through encrypted messaging applications. The Ministry of State Security communicated with their agents using technology designed to be secure, apps that promised end-to-end encryption. Platforms popular in China, but less monitored by American authorities. The messages were likely brief, specific, professional. This wasn't casual conversation. These were intelligence requirements being transmitted from handlers in China to assets in America. Chen's first major assignment was to visit a naval installation in Washington state, not as a tourist taking photos, not as someone openly conducting surveillance, but as someone who could get close, who could observe, who could collect information without raising suspicion. The Ministry of State Security wanted details on Navy facilities, layout information, security procedures, personnel movement patterns, the kind of targeting data that intelligence services collect when planning operations or building profiles on military installations. Chen made the trip. He observed what he could. He took notes. He photographed what seemed safe to photograph. He gathered the intelligence his handlers requested. Then he transmitted it back to China. Another requirement fulfilled, another payment earned. The operation continued. The next major tasking came with higher stakes. Chen was instructed to visit a Navy Recruitment Center in San Gabriel, California, a city in the San Gabriel Valley, part of Greater Los Angeles, population approximately 40,000. The recruitment center served as a gateway for young Americans wanting to join the Navy. Recruiters worked there daily, processing applications, conducting interviews, handling paperwork containing personal information on American citizens who wanted to serve their country. The Ministry of State Security wanted information from inside that recruitment center. They wanted details on recruits, personal data that could be used to build intelligence profiles, information that could identify potential targets for future recruitment attempts or compromise operations. They wanted to know who was joining the Navy, where they came from, what their backgrounds looked like, what vulnerabilities might exist. This was classic intelligence work, building databases of potential targets, identifying individuals who might be approached later, creating opportunities for future operations. And Chen was their collection asset. He would walk into that recruitment center and steal the information Beijing wanted. Chen planned his visit carefully. He couldn't simply break into the recruitment center at night. The security would be too obvious. Alarms would trigger. Police would respond. The risk was too high. Instead, he would visit during normal business hours, walk in through the front door, pretend to be interested in Navy service or asking questions on behalf of someone else, appear legitimate, blend in, become invisible through normalcy. Recruitment centers welcome visitors. Recruiters are trained to engage potential recruits, to answer questions, to provide information, to be helpful and accessible. Chen would exploit that openness. He chose a day when the center appeared busy enough that one additional visitor wouldn't draw unusual attention. He dressed casually, but appropriately. Nothing that would stand out. He carried a phone, but nothing else that might seem suspicious. He walked in. A recruiter greeted him. Chen asked questions about Navy service, about requirements, about opportunities. The recruiter responded professionally, provided brochures, explained the enlistment process, standard recruitment center interaction. Nothing unusual, nothing memorable. At some point during the visit, the recruiter stepped away, perhaps to grab additional materials, perhaps to check something on a computer, perhaps to speak with another staff member. The reason doesn't matter. What matters is that Chen was left alone for a moment, 90 seconds at most, maybe less, but it was enough. He moved quickly. His phone came out. The camera activated. He photographed computer screens displaying personal information on recruits, names clearly visible, contact details exposed, background information accessible. He photographed documents left on desks, recruiting materials with handwritten notes, personal information forms waiting to be processed. Everything happened fast. Point, click, capture. Move to the next item. Point, click, capture. His heart was probably racing, adrenaline pumping, but his hand stayed steady. The photos came out clear, usable, valuable. By the time the recruiter returned, Chen's phone was back in his pocket. His expression remained neutral, interested, but not overly curious. He thanked the recruiter for the information, took a business card, said he would think about it, walked out the door. The entire visit lasted maybe 15 minutes. The recruiter probably forgot about him within an hour, just another person asking questions. But Chen had accomplished his mission. He had stolen personal information on American military recruits. He had it on his phone, and soon it would be in Beijing. Chen didn't wait long to transmit the information. The Ministry of State Security had trained him on secure communication methods, how to encrypt files, how to use virtual private networks, how to mask his digital footprint. He uploaded the photographs to a secure server accessible to his handlers in China. The images traveled across the Pacific through encrypted channels. Within hours, MSS intelligence officers in Beijing were reviewing the stolen data. They saw the names, the addresses, the contact information, the educational backgrounds, the family details. Everything they needed to build comprehensive profiles on young Americans entering naval service. This information had significant intelligence value. It could identify individuals who might be vulnerable to recruitment approaches. It could reveal family members who might be targeted for influence operations. It could provide insight into the types of people joining the Navy, their backgrounds, their motivations, their potential weaknesses. For a foreign intelligence service, this was gold, and Chen had delivered it. He had walked into an American military recruitment center and stolen exactly what Beijing wanted. The operation was succeeding. The network was productive. The Ministry of State Security was pleased. Chen's success brought additional instructions. The MSS wanted more than just passive collection. They wanted Chen to understand recruitment methods, how intelligence services identify potential assets, how they make initial approaches, how they build relationships that lead to espionage, how they minimize exposure risk while maximizing operational effectiveness. This wasn't academic education. This was practical tradecraft training. The Ministry of State Security was developing Chen into a more sophisticated operative, someone who could not only collect intelligence himself, but potentially recruit others, someone who could expand the network, build subsources, create a deeper penetration of American society and institutions. The handlers provided detailed instruction through encrypted communications. They explained how to identify individuals with access to valuable information, how to spot vulnerabilities, financial problems, career frustrations, ideological sympathies, personal weaknesses. They taught him how to make casual contact without raising suspicion, how to build rapport gradually, how to move from acquaintance to friendship to trust, how to introduce the idea of providing information in ways that seemed harmless at first, small favors, minor requests, building incrementally toward more significant betrayals. The instruction continued over months. Chen learned how to minimize exposure risk, how to vary his patterns, how to avoid creating routines that surveillance teams could exploit, how to conduct counter-surveillance, how to detect if he was being followed, how to use public spaces for meetings, how to blend into crowds, how to communicate securely, how to handle dead drops, how to manage the psychological stress of clandestine operations. The Ministry of State Security wasn't leaving anything to chance. They were building Chen into a professional intelligence operative, someone who could operate long-term without detection, someone who could survive in the denied environment of American counterintelligence operations, someone valuable enough to invest in. Chen absorbed the training. He practiced the techniques. He became more careful, more professional, more dangerous, but he also became more confident. And confidence can breed carelessness, the belief that you're good enough, smart enough, careful enough, that you won't make mistakes, that you won't get caught. That belief would eventually contribute to his downfall. But in 2023 and early 2024, Chen felt secure. The operation was working, the money was flowing, Beijing was happy. Everything seemed under control. The Ministry of State Security wanted face-to-face meetings with their assets. Electronic communication was useful but limited. Some things required personal contact, detailed briefings, complex instructions, passing of physical materials, assessment of the agent's reliability and mental state, collection of information too sensitive to transmit electronically, and payment of compensation large enough that cash transfers were impractical through intermediaries. Chen received instructions to travel to China, specifically to Guangzhou, a massive city in southern China, population exceeding 15 million, major commercial hub, international business center, a place where an American permanent resident traveling for business or family visits wouldn't raise immediate suspicion. Chen traveled to Guangzhou in April 2024. He flew from the United States through standard commercial aviation, passed through customs, entered China legally. No hidden identity, no false documentation, just Yuance Chen returning to his homeland for a visit. But this wasn't a family trip. This was an intelligence meeting. Chen met with his MSS handlers at a location the FBI would later work to identify. The meeting covered multiple topics: operational details, future tasking, security protocols, performance assessment. But one major topic was compensation. Chen wanted to discuss payment for his espionage work, how much he would receive, how it would be delivered, what his services were worth to Beijing. The compensation discussion revealed the transactional nature of Chen's betrayal. This wasn't ideology driving him, not political conviction, not revenge against America. This was business. Chen was selling information for money. The Ministry of State Security was buying intelligence services. They negotiated terms like any business arrangement. How much for specific types of information? How much for successful recruitment of subsources? How payment would be structured, whether through dead drops like the Livermore bowling alley exchange or through other methods. whether in cash or through more sophisticated financial channels. The exact amounts discussed remain classified in the FBI's investigation files, but the meeting in Guangzhou made clear that Chen expected to be paid, expected to profit from his betrayal, expected that stealing American military information and compromising young Americans entering naval service would generate income. The Ministry of State Security agreed. They paid. They promised more. They kept Chen motivated. They kept him operational. They sent him back to America with new tasking and renewed commitment to the intelligence network they had built. Chen wasn't the only asset traveling to Guangzhou for face-to-face meetings. Liren Lai also received instructions to travel to China. Lai made his trip in March 2025, just a year after Chen's visit. Same city, same purpose, meeting with MSS handlers to discuss operations, tradecraft, and compensation. The FBI would later analyze the pattern. 2 assets, both traveling to the same Chinese city, both meeting with intelligence handlers, both discussing payment, both returning to the United States to continue operations. The pattern showed organization, structure, a functioning intelligence network with established protocols. The Ministry of State Security was running a disciplined operation. They maintained regular contact with their agents, provided direction, offered support, ensured operational security, and compensated their assets for services rendered. Lai's meeting in Guangzhou covered similar ground to Chen's. Operational updates, future requirements, security procedures, and compensation discussion. Lai wanted to be paid for his espionage work. The MSS wanted to ensure he remained motivated and productive. They negotiated. They agreed. They continued their relationship. Lai returned to Houston, back to his normal life, back to his cover existence, back to waiting for the next tasking from Beijing. Everything seemed secure. Everything seemed professional. Everything seemed like it would continue indefinitely, but the FBI was already watching, already building the case, already preparing to dismantle the network. The FBI's investigation into Chen and Lai didn't start with dramatic surveillance or intercepted communications. It started with that cash deposit in January 2022, $10,000, just under the reporting threshold, deposited by Chen's wife in Portland, Oregon. The FinCEN algorithm flagged it. An analyst reviewed it. She saw a Chinese national with no obvious source for large cash payments. She opened a preliminary inquiry. She began pulling financial records, bank statements, transaction histories, deposit patterns. She found more suspicious activity, not just one cash deposit, multiple deposits over time, all structured to avoid reporting requirements, all from sources that weren't adequately explained. The analyst expanded her search. She looked at Chen's travel records. She found trips to California, to Washington, to China. She looked at his communications metadata. She found encrypted messaging applications typically used by individuals concerned about surveillance. She looked at his known associates. She found Liren Lai in Houston, another Chinese national, similar financial patterns, similar travel history, similar communication security practices. The analyst saw a pattern, not proof yet, but enough indicators to elevate the inquiry. She wrote a report, submitted it to the FBI's Counterintelligence Division, recommended a full investigation. Her recommendation was approved. FBI counterintelligence agents began building their case in late 2022. They started with financial surveillance, monitoring Chen's bank accounts, tracking his transactions, following the money. They saw the same patterns the analyst had flagged. Structured deposits, unexplained cash sources, spending that exceeded legitimate income. They expanded to physical surveillance. Teams began following Chen, logging his movements, photographing his meetings, documenting his patterns. They deployed technical surveillance, court-authorized wiretaps on his phone lines, monitoring of his electronic communications, collection of his digital footprint, every email, every text message, every internet search, everything legally collectible under Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act authorities. The investigation expanded to Lai, same package of surveillance tools, financial monitoring, physical surveillance, technical collection. The FBI was building a comprehensive picture of the network. Who communicated with whom, how they received instructions, how they transmitted stolen information, how they got paid. The investigation moves slowly but thoroughly. Counterintelligence work requires patience. You don't arrest immediately. You watch, you collect, you document, you build an airtight case. Because when you do move, when you do arrest, you want convictions, you want prison sentences, you want to dismantle the network completely. No loose ends, no operational assets escaping, clean takedown, total victory. The surveillance teams discovered Chen's visit to the San Gabriel Navy Recruitment Center. They didn't observe it in real time. They found it through forensic analysis of his travel records, his phone's location data, his communications. They saw he had been in San Gabriel on a specific date. They checked surveillance footage from businesses near the recruitment center. They found him on camera, walking toward the center, entering the building, exiting 15 minutes later. The FBI contacted the recruitment center, interviewed staff, showed photographs. A recruiter remembered Chen, vaguely. Just another visitor asking questions, nothing particularly memorable. But the FBI asked detailed questions. Was Chen ever alone? Did he have access to computers? Could he have photographed materials? The recruiter tried to remember. It was months earlier. But yes, there was a moment when the recruiter had stepped away briefly. Chen could have been alone for 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. The FBI knew what had happened in those 90 seconds. Chen had stolen personal information on American military recruits. The surveillance teams found additional evidence. They discovered Chen's trip to Washington to observe the naval installation. They documented his visits to California beyond the recruitment center. They tracked his travel to Guangzhou for the April 2024 meeting with MSS handlers. Every movement, every transaction, every communication. The net was tightening. Chen didn't know. Lai didn't know. They continued their normal lives, confident in their operational security, confident the FBI had no idea they existed. They were wrong. The evidence kept mounting. Financial analysis showing Chen received approximately $47,000 in unexplained income between January 2022 and June 2025. Cash deposits totaling that amount, structured to avoid reporting. Source identified as Ministry of State Security through intelligence sharing with allies. Travel records showing Chen's trips to naval installations. Phone location data placing him at the San Gabriel Recruitment Center on the exact date personal information was stolen. Communications intercepts showing encrypted messaging with handlers in China. Content of messages demonstrating intelligence tasking and operational instruction. Surveillance photographs showing Chen at locations connected to dead drops. Video footage from Livermore Bowling Alley showing him near Locker 47 on the date of the cash exchange. Bank records showing Lai's suspicious financial activity. Similar pattern of structured deposits. Similar unexplained income. Similar timing coinciding with known MSS operational activities. Travel records showing Lai's trip to Guangzhou in March 2025. Intelligence reporting confirming MSS handlers met with assets during that time period in that location. Communications intercepts connecting Lai to Chen. Messages discussing operational security. References to taskings. Coordination of activities. The forensic accounting was damning. The surveillance evidence was overwhelming. The communications intercepts removed any doubt. The FBI had enough. More than enough. Probable cause for arrest. Evidence for conviction. The decision was made. Time to take down the network. The FBI coordinated the takedown for maximum impact. Simultaneous arrests. Both targets secured at the same time. No opportunity for one to warn the other. No chance for either to flee or destroy evidence. The operation required precise timing across 2,000 miles. Agents in Oregon ready at Chen's residence in Happy Valley. Agents in Texas positioned at Lai's location in Houston. Command centers monitoring in real time. Secure communications linking all teams. The date selected was June 27, 2025, a Friday, early morning, when targets would be home, when streets would be quiet, when the element of surprise would be complete. The FBI assembled significant resources, 17 vehicles for Chen's arrest in Oregon, 12 vehicles for Lai's arrest in Texas, over 60 agents total. SWAT teams on standby, evidence response teams ready to execute search warrants, forensic specialists prepared to seize computers and phones, translators available to handle any Chinese language materials, prosecutors briefed on charges, court documents prepared, detention orders ready. Every detail planned, every contingency considered. This was a major counterintelligence operation. Nothing would be left to chance. 6:47 a.m. Pacific Time. Rodriguez watches Chen's house in Happy Valley. The radio crackles. Houston team reports ready. All units synchronized. Rodriguez gives the order. Go. FBI agents emerge from vehicles. They move toward Chen's house. Fast but controlled. Weapons drawn but aimed down. They reach the front door. An agent knocks. Loud, authoritative. FBI. Open the door. Movement inside. Chen appears. Confused, still in sleepwear. He sees the badges, the guns, the body armor. His face goes pale. He understands immediately. His operation is over. His freedom is ending. Agents order him to step outside. Hands visible. No sudden movements. Chen complies. He's shaking. One agent approaches, reads him his rights. Yuance Chen, you are under arrest for conspiracy to act as an agent of a foreign government without notification to the Attorney General. Chen says nothing. An agent turns him around, hands behind his back. Handcuffs snap closed. The sound is final. Absolute. Chen is led to a waiting vehicle. He looks back at his house one time. His wife stands in the doorway, shocked, terrified, crying. Chen is placed in the vehicle. The door closes. At the same moment, 2,000 miles away in Houston, the same scene plays out. Li's arrest. Same choreography. Same procedure. Same outcome. Two assets of Chinese intelligence taken into custody simultaneously. The network is broken. The operation is finished. Both men are headed to federal detention. Both face serious charges. Both will learn the price of betraying America for Beijing's intelligence service. The search warrants execute immediately after the arrests. At Chen's house in Happy Valley, evidence response teams enter. They photograph everything, document the scene. Then they begin systematic collection. Computers seized, 3 laptops, 2 desktop systems. All hard drives will be forensically imaged. Every file examined, every communication analyzed. Cell phone seized, Chen's phone, his wife's phone, every phone in the house. The digital forensics team will extract everything. Text messages, photos, app data, location history, contact lists, everything. Papers seized, financial documents, bank statements, travel receipts, correspondence, anything that might connect to the espionage operation. The search takes 6 hours. They fill 17 evidence boxes. Everything photographed, everything cataloged, everything maintained in proper chain of custody. At Li's residence in Houston, the same process. Computers seized, phones taken, documents collected, 12 evidence boxes. The searches are thorough but professional. No unnecessary destruction. No harassment of family members. Just methodical collection of evidence under legal authority of federal search warrants. The material will go to FBI laboratories. Digital forensic specialists will spend weeks analyzing the electronic evidence. Document examiners will review every paper. Financial analysts will trace every transaction, building the case, preparing for trial, ensuring conviction. Chen's first court appearance happened on June 30th, 2025, 3 days after his arrest. Federal Courthouse in Portland, Oregon. Chen appeared before a magistrate judge. He wore an orange jail jumpsuit, shackles on his ankles, handcuffs on his wrists. His court-appointed attorney stood beside him. The prosecutor stood across the courtroom, Assistant United States Attorney Michael Henderson. Henderson had spent his career prosecuting espionage cases. He knew exactly what he was doing. The magistrate judge reviewed the charges. Conspiracy to act as an agent of the People's Republic of China without prior notification to the Attorney General as required under Title 18 United States Code, Section 951. Maximum penalty 20 years in federal prison. The judge asked Chen if he understood the charges. Chen nodded, yes. His voice barely audible. The judge moved to bail consideration. Henderson stood. Your Honor, the government opposes bail. This defendant is an unregistered foreign agent. He has deep ties to China. He has traveled there repeatedly. He poses an extreme flight risk. He has access to resources from a foreign intelligence service. If released, he will disappear. He will flee to China, which has no extradition treaty with the United States. He will never face justice. The government requests he be held without bail pending trial. Chen's attorney tried to argue. His client has a wife in Portland. He has roots in the community. He's a legal permanent resident. He's not a flight risk. But the argument failed. The judge agreed with the prosecution. Bail denied. Chen would remain in federal detention. He was led from the courtroom, back to his cell, where he would stay until trial. Li's court appearance occurred July 1st in Houston. Same procedure, same charges, same outcome. Magistrate judge, orange jumpsuit, shackles, reading of charges, bail hearing, prosecutor arguing flight risk, defense attorney arguing for release, judge siding with the government, bail denied. Li led away to federal detention. Both men now sat in jail cells hundreds of miles apart, both facing the same charges, both looking at the same maximum sentence, 20 years in federal prison, both cut off from their families, from their lives, from any hope of freedom. The Ministry of State Security couldn't help them now. Beijing had no power in American courtrooms, no ability to influence federal judges, no way to extract their assets from the American justice system. Chen and Li had operated for years believing they were smart enough, careful enough, protected enough by their handlers. They believed the money was worth the risk. They believed they wouldn't get caught. They were wrong on every count. Now they faced decades in prison, their families destroyed, their futures erased. All for payments that totaled less than $50,000 each. They had sold their freedom, sold their honor, sold their adopted country's security, and the price they would pay would be measured in years behind bars. The legal process moved forward through summer and fall of 2025. Federal grand juries in Oregon and Texas reviewed the evidence, heard testimony from FBI agents, examined documents and digital evidence. Both grand juries returned indictments. Formal charges against Chen and Li. The cases proceeded toward trial. Prosecutors assembled their evidence, financial records showing payments from Chinese intelligence, travel records documenting trips to meet MSS handlers, communications intercepts proving coordination with foreign intelligence officers, surveillance footage placing Chen at the Navy Recruitment Center, testimony from recruiters about his visit, forensic evidence from seized computers showing stolen personal information, expert testimony about Ministry of State Security operations and tactics, witness statements from FBI agents who conducted the investigation. The prosecution's case was overwhelming. The evidence told a clear story. 2 men, working for Chinese intelligence, stealing American military information, compromising American service members, receiving payment from a hostile foreign power, all while living in America under legal permanent resident status, all while pretending to be normal immigrants pursuing the American dream. The betrayal was complete. The evidence was irrefutable. The outcome seemed certain. Defense attorneys for both men faced difficult choices. The evidence against their clients was substantial. Conviction at trial seemed likely, perhaps inevitable. But federal espionage cases sometimes offer opportunities for cooperation, plea agreements in exchange for information about handlers, about other network members, about Chinese intelligence operations and methods. The Ministry of State Security runs many networks in America. Chen and Li might know about others. They might provide information valuable to FBI counterintelligence operations. They might reduce their sentences by cooperating. But cooperation means confession, means admitting guilt, means testifying against their former handlers, means accepting the label of spy, of traitor, means facing whatever remains of their lives knowing they betrayed both China and America, first by spying for Beijing, then by cooperating with American authorities. Some defendants choose cooperation. Some choose to fight at trial. Some plead guilty without cooperation, hoping for mercy from judges. As of late 2025, both Chen and Li remained in federal detention awaiting trial. Their legal strategy remained unclear, their ultimate fate uncertain. But their freedom was gone. Their operation was finished. Their network was dismantled. The damage assessment continued months after the arrests. What exactly did Chen steal from the Navy Recruitment Center? How many recruits had their personal information compromised? What has the Ministry of State Security done with that information? Have they approached any of those individuals? Have they attempted to recruit any of them? Have they used the information to target their families? The Navy launched an internal investigation, reviewing security protocols at recruitment centers, examining what information is kept on unencrypted computer screens, looking at how recruiting materials are handled, identifying weaknesses that allowed Chen to steal information during a brief visit. The damage extended beyond the specific information stolen. Chen and Li's operation demonstrated that Chinese intelligence was actively targeting American military recruitment, building databases of individuals entering service, creating opportunities for future compromise operations. This wasn't passive intelligence collection. This was active preparation for future operations against American service members. The implications were serious, ongoing. The damage would take years to fully assess. Meanwhile, the FBI's Counterintelligence Division continued investigating the network. Were Chen and Li the only assets? Were there others? What other operations was this MSS cell running? What else had been compromised? The investigation remained active, open, expanding. Because spy networks are rarely limited to just two people, there are always more connections to find, more operations to uncover, more damage to assess. The Chen and Li case represents modern Chinese intelligence operations in America. The Ministry of State Security runs sophisticated networks targeting American military, technology, and government institutions. They recruit Chinese nationals living in the United States, legal permanent residents, students, visitors, people with access or potential access to valuable information. They use traditional tradecraft mixed with modern technology, dead drops in bowling alleys alongside encrypted messaging apps. Cash payments delivered physically alongside sophisticated financial channels, face-to-face meetings in Chinese cities alongside remote instruction via secure communications. The operations are patient, methodical, long-term focused. The MSS thinks in decades, not months. They build networks slowly, develop assets carefully, accept gradual results rather than demanding immediate intelligence. This makes detection difficult. Traditional counterintelligence assumes certain patterns, certain behaviors, certain profiles. But Chinese intelligence operations often look different. They exploit ethnic communities. They leverage cultural connections. They use family ties and patriotic appeals. They target individuals who might not fit traditional spy profiles. And they operate at scale, not just a few assets, not just a handful of operations, hundreds of networks, thousands of potential operatives, a whole-of-society approach to intelligence collection. The challenge for American counterintelligence is immense. The FBI and other agencies work constantly to identify and dismantle these networks, but resources are limited, targets are numerous. The scale of Chinese intelligence operations in America exceeds anything seen during the Cold War with the Soviet Union. This is the new reality of espionage, and cases like Chen and Li represent just one small piece of a much larger problem. If you found this documentary valuable, if you learned something about how modern espionage actually works, if you want to see more content exposing how foreign intelligence services operate on American soil, please hit that like button right now. It helps this video reach more people who need to understand these threats. Subscribe to this channel for more deep investigations into espionage cases, intelligence operations, and the ongoing conflict between American security and foreign spying. Turn on notifications so you never miss when we expose another spy network. Drop a comment below. What surprised you most about this case? Did you know Chinese intelligence was targeting Navy recruitment centers? What other espionage stories should we investigate next? Your engagement drives this channel forward. Share this video with anyone interested in national security, intelligence operations, or true crime. These stories matter. These threats are real. These operations happen every day in cities across America. Understanding how espionage works helps us all stay vigilant, helps us recognize suspicious behavior, helps us protect our country and our service members. Thank you for watching. Stay informed. Stay aware. And remember that the person asking innocent questions might not be innocent at all. Sometimes they work for Beijing. Sometimes they walk into recruitment centers stealing information. Sometimes they're the spy next door. Until next time, stay safe and stay vigilant.